Hello, everyone. It's your host, your friend, your boy, Jet Black, the one and only, here with.
The guy not next to him.
And today we're going to do episode 2 of the Two Guys Talking podcast. I hope you guys are hype. Reception from episode 1 has been pretty good, though the SpongeBob looking for WAP video in much less time seems to have brought on like a stronger following. So we're competing with that right now. Have you seen that video yet, Ryan?
No.
So I made a like SpongeBob like dub comedy video where SpongeBob is trying to find some WAP at the bottom of the ocean, and people like it so far. People have been really digging it. But anyways, what have you been up to today, Ryan? And what topics would you like to discuss? I have a few topics already that I have like planned, but I want to hear what's on your mind and what you want to talk about.
I mean, I don't know. Talk about whatever you want.
Okay. So have you heard of the sport Ultimate Tag?
No.
Okay, so Ultimate Tag is a like Ninja Warrior wipeout kind of show that came out this year, and you can watch it online for free on Tubi. But essentially, you have like three male contestants and three female contestants. And the men and the women each compete in their own activities. They don't like intermingle. Um,
Mhm.
and you essentially have them playing tag in a big obstacle course, but all of them are like trying to run away from like a professional person who's called a tagger. And the professional has like
Why is he called a tagger?
because their job is to tag the other people. They could call them it, I guess, but sometimes there are multiple
It.
taggers. But I guess you could just say they're all it. But that's more or less what's
It's
going on.
the collective now.
Right.
It'll assimilate you into it.
Well, that's the interesting part. It's not tag as in like if you get tagged, now you're it. Normally getting tagged is like a penalty. Like the way that the game works is that you essentially are given like some kind of objective that'll give you like points, and you're trying to like complete the objective in order to earn points. But while you're trying to complete the objective in the obstacle course, there's a tagger who's essentially trying to like hunt you down, and if you get tagged, it can be as severe as you get like eliminated, or it can be like a penalty, like, oh, you lost points, or oh, it's like a time based objective, and we like add seconds to your time if you're trying to get like a low time kind of thing. But all the taggers have like outfits and personalities, and they play like character roles. Like one dude is like a caveman, and he dresses like a caveman, and he acts like a caveman as he like tries to like tag you. And another dude is like a geek, and he dresses kind of like Napoleon Dynamite, but he's also like a professional like free runner, like he does like parkour. And he once caught this dude who was competing, who was like a football player, and they were like, "How'd you catch him so fast?" And he was like, "Well, it was simple mathematics. It's just about, getting from the shortest distance between you and your objective, which is just going in a straight line, and I just completed it perfectly." Like, they really, like, play into their characters, which I think is interesting. Um, what I found is weird about Ultimate Tag, though, is that... Also, do you want to do the video thing? Or at the very least, do you want to see me do the video thing?
Sure.
Okay.
Who doesn't want to see jits? Dude.
See, your boy Cowboy is gonna be like sus, sus, because he thought the SpongeBob looking for WAP video was sus, which you would know about if you had seen that video. So I'm hitting accept, but nothing's happening.
Okay.
Have you hit accept on your end or decline?
What?
Okay, so I'm gonna hit accept. Yeah, it's not doing anything. Like a white box will appear around accept, but then nothing happens. Okay. I mean, it's whatever. Ryan's trying again, I guess. I'm still just getting white box. White box on green
Yeah,
button.
I don't know. I don't see a white box anyway.
Let's see. But continuing on about like the ultimate tag thing, the thing that gets me about it is that whenever the contestants come up, they'll have one contestant who's just like a normal person. Then they'll have another contestant who's like, I'm a pro.
You got like really quiet.
I got really quiet.
Yeah,
Am I still really quiet or am I like the same volume now?
you're still really quiet.
I'm still really quiet. I'm like right in front of my laptop. Uh, are you using like your AirPods?
No,
No? Okay. What are you using as your, excuse me, as your audio source?
the phone.
The phone? Is your phone turned
Okay,
up?
okay. It's bad. I fixed it. It's all good.
Okay. I'm glad that everything's all good. So what gets me about how they pick contestants for Ultimate Tag, they'll always have one normal person, one like professional athlete, and then one person who's like an upper echelon kind of guy, like someone who's like an actual like Olympian kind of thing. And I don't really like that. I kind of get the idea. It's supposed to be like you have like a full spectrum of competitors of different skill levels. But what I dislike about it is that the person who's the upper echelon person is just the best. Like as soon as they introduce everybody,
Best around.
no one's gonna ever
Ever
take you
keep you
down.
down.
So once you learn who the upper echelon person is, you're just like, oh well, I guess they're gonna win. Like because whoever's the normal person, I immediately write off. It's not even a thing where I'm like, oh, underdog, like, no, they got it. Because when it's like a football player, an Olympian, and then this guy who's like, yeah, so I work like a desk job and I just really thought it'd be cool to play like ultimate tag. You're like, oh no. It's like I immediately am like, why is he here? Did he know? Did he know that he was gonna be like the lamest one in the roster? It's always weird. Um, there was one where the normal person was like this woman who was like, I do martial arts. And I was like, martial arts isn't like not physically active, but it has very little to do with like an obstacle course. Like the other two people were like, I'm like a professional basketball player. And when I play basketball, I'm like super agile and I have to like keep my stamina up and move quickly. And I'm like, okay, like it sounds like she'd probably do well. And then the other woman was like, I'm an Olympic like track and field person. I'm like, oh shit. I she's gonna be just racing through the shit and like jumping over obstacles. Like she's obviously gonna win. So the martial arts person, they kind of had like an attitude about them. And when they would get tagged, they would like glare at the taggers. Like they almost felt like a character within their own right. Um, and I don't know. It's interesting to see them try, I guess. But I feel like they never last long. They're like always the first to get eliminated. But what do you think, Ryan? Do you think they should have everybody be at the same skill level? Or do you think it's interesting that they do pick different people with different skill levels?
I mean, how would you even like be able to tell someone's skill level?
Well, the tasks have to do with like maneuvering through obstacle courses while avoiding like professional like parkour people who like know these obstacle courses like the back of their hands because it's just their job to do this.
Professional park or
Free runners would be the like proper term, I guess.
yeah, Assassin's Creed.
Assassin's Creed. Like that's essentially kind of what it's like. You have like
With all the assassin, without all the assassination.
true. Though if they had like some special effects, they could just make it like oh, and then there's like blood when they get tagged or whatever. It wouldn't even be that hard for them to do. You could probably edit like the episodes like in post and make it where it's like instead of them getting tagged, it's like they get like stabbed by like a hidden blade or something. I'd watch that. To be honest, I think I would watch a lot more sports if they added like special effects in post. Um, on Disney XD, they would used to show like basketball footage, but they would put like energy auras on the players and add like extra
Pew
effects and
pew
stuff
pew
like that.
pew pew
Yeah, and I'm like, I
pew
would
pew
watch
pew
that.
pews.
I would legitimately check that out because that's kind of what sports anime will do sometimes, you know?
I guess.
Speaking of sports anime, I've heard that there's like a really good volleyball sports anime, but I've never watched it. Have you checked it out or the manga? And if so, would you vouch for it? And if not, have you heard of it before? Right.
You know the name? It's like I heard there's a sport anime. Have
Well,
you heard of it? I'm like,
it's
have I heard of what?
like, have you watched or heard about any volleyball anime? Like, I
I've
don't think.
heard of a volleyball anime.
Did you hear about one that was like particularly good that people were like recommending that you
No.
watch? Okay, then you might not have heard of the specific one that I'm referring to. That's really all like I need to know. I haven't checked it out, but I've heard it's good, so I might check it out. It starts with an H, but it's like a Japanese name. I feel like if I tried to say it, I would butcher it, and I also don't fully remember it. But I've heard it's pretty solid. Um, have I ever talked to you about the UWM or whatever?
UWN?
UWM. I think
And
it's called like Unified Weapons Master or whatever. But it's a like it's a new sport. It's similar to like how Ultimate Tag is like a new sport, but this is a little bit older than Ultimate Tag. The idea is they have these like protective suits that people can wear, and they use like polycarbonate weapons, so like swords and staffs and shields and stuff like that, which are like training weapons that aren't sharp but they are blunt, and you could still totally kill someone with like a polycarbonate weapon. It's just you wouldn't like slash into them; it would be like blunt damage. Like they still are like weighted and they're still like pretty like hefty, but the special equipment that the people are wearing who are using the weapons protects them from being killed, but also has a bunch of sensors on it that can measure, like, oh, if you weren't wearing the armor, then it would have, like, broken your windpipe or whatever, or they would have, like, broken your leg. And they have a screen that you can see, and whenever they get hit and it'd be like a very sufficient blow, they do the thing from Mortal Kombat where you can see like an X-ray, where they go like if they weren't wearing the armor, this is where they would have just gotten like fucked up. And I think that's really interesting. But the concept behind it is that they get like people who are trained in weapons, who like know how to like legitimately use a sword, but have never like fought to their fullest, where it's like you fight as if you would kill someone, and then they're like, okay, like no holds barred, like fight them as if you're trying to kill them. They won't die, but will be able to register when they would have died, and then that's when you like get a point. And you just fight them like so many times, like best 2 out of 3. So it's like the first to like 2 points, or I guess, yeah, it'd be the first to 2 points kind of thing. What are your thoughts on this? This is like a real sport. I watched it like a few years ago, back when I was in college.
mhm.
Would it be something that you think that like you would watch or have any
No,
interest in watching? No? Why not?
don't know. I don't really watch a lot of sports.
So I also am not like a huge sports guy, but I do think these newer sports like Ultimate Tag and like Unified Weapons Master and even some like older stuff like Ninja Warrior, or getting to like the campy side like Wipeout and stuff like that. I do kind of like those. Like I'm not a big fan of like football or like soccer or basketball or anything like that. But these like obstacle course shows or Unified Weapons Master, I think are really interesting. What I like about Unified Weapons Master is that people back in the day used to watch like deathmatch kind of things. Like you could like potentially see like a gladiator fight another gladiator like to the death kind of thing. But because we don't just kill people for sport, like for like normal like televised sporting events or whatever, you can't really see like death bouts nowadays. But now you get to essentially like see professional like weapons masters who could easily kill people if given like a real sword, and you get to see them fight to their fullest like without holding back, and get to see like how they would take on like an opponent. Normally, the two fighters are like weapon masters who use different weapons. So one person might be like, I'm really good with swords, and another person might be like, well, I'm skilled with like a sickle and chain kind of thing. And then they go at it. Um, but yeah, I just think that's really cool. Like to be able to see these like gladiator style bouts. It's just the armor's good.
Fight?
Oh, what'd you say, Ryan?
I said fight?
Fight. Doom. Speaking of like fight and like fighting games and stuff like that, John Mason and I played Spellbreak. We did like a live stream where we played together, and he brought up something really interesting. So because of Jim Lee's whole everything's canon, like every DC property exists in the multiverse somewhere thing, that means that Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe, like that old video game, like that's canon. So that puts like the Mortal Kombat stuff
Yeah,
in
Terminator?
DC Multiverse.
Canon.
Ooh, that's oh wow. You're bringing up a good point because Mortal Kombat already has like a ton of crossover stuff in its own right. So that would imply that a lot of stuff would be canon to DC. You get like Freddy Krueger, Leatherface, Jason, Alien, Predator, RoboCop. I think Kratos from God of War would be. Oh fuck. Well, it depends on like how much stuff that you count from like things that those characters have appeared in. Because Kratos was also in PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale, and that has like a bunch of PlayStation characters. So would you argue that like all those PlayStation characters are then like also canon to like DC through that connection?
Maybe.
Yeah, I feel like it gets weirder like the more.
If the versions of those characters that appeared in that game were the same versions of the characters that appeared in those other places.
That is a good point. I mean, it's interesting because like Kratos from God of War being a guest character in like two different fighting games, is it too unrealistic to think that the Kratos in like one fighting game is any different from the Kratos in like another fighting game? Like, couldn't it be like this version of Kratos is the one who's a guest character in fighting games? You know, like
Mm.
I could potentially see that, I guess. Um, but it does create like a weird rabbit hole. I'm trying to think. You could connect that to Smash Brothers really easily, actually.
Smash!
Because Kratos was in PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale, and then I think Raiden from Metal Gear Solid was in PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale, and then Snake from Metal Gear Solid is in Smash, and then as soon as you connect to Smash, you have like a whole bunch of people that you could then go off of in many different directions. The DC like crossover map is really crazy with this new announcement that like everything's canon. But what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that could be like a whole topic in and of itself?
Sure. Yeah. Batman crosses over with Scooby Doo.
Scooby Doo crosses over with like Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy and like
Scooby Doo crosses over with John Cena.
yeah, I said WWE. We're on the same page.
John Cena.
Speaking of John Cena, he's playing Peacemaker in the new Suicide Squad movie, and they're giving him his own excuse me, HBO Max show, like based on Peacemaker. And I think the show is supposed to be like a prequel, so it takes place before the Suicide Squad movie. And I don't really know why they're giving him like a whole show. Um,
He's John Cena.
I mean, he
He's
is
gonna be the
John
new
Cena.
The Rock.
Do you think John Cena could potentially be the new The Rock?
He's already in those Fred movies, you know?
Did you just say bread movies?
Fred.
Fred
He's in the
movies?
Fred movies.
How many Fred movies are there?
I think there's three.
Three? Fred has a trilogy?
At least two.
This is minimum two. So we're talking about the same guy, right? Like Fred
Yeah,
with
John Cena is
two.
like plays like Fred's dad or something. I don't know.
Oh. I wonder if I Google Fred, how easy will it be for me to like find his like Wikipedia? Fred Figglehorn? Is that his name?
I don't know.
Yeah, this is him. So let's see how many movies. Oh shit, he does have a trilogy. Fred
Hmm.
the movie, Fred 2, Night of the Living Fred, and Fred 3, Camp Fred.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
So why is that your note of yeah, John Cena could be the next Dwayne
He's
The
in
Rock.
movies.
He's
He's already
in
in
movies.
TV.
Yeah, but Dwayne The
He's in
Rock
Scooby
Johnson is
Doo.
like one of the most highest demand like actors now. Like getting Dwayne is like a really big deal.
Dwayne.
Dwayne,
Dwayne.
Dwayne,
Dwayne.
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 In the high notes.
It's not even a high note.
The low notes? What was it? You were hitting something.
This is me.
Ryan's got the hits. Highs or lows. He got
I ain't got no monsters to summon. He's got Thunder King Ryo. I can't do any searches.
Ryan, are you playing Yu-Gi-Oh during the podcast?
No.
He's like
But he does
the
have Thunder King
metaphor.
Ryo on the field in an unrelated way.
Let's see. Um,
Thunder King. Great name.
have you read any Savage Dragon today?
No.
No? Oh, okay. Let's see. Oh, I was talking to John Mason a little bit
Ah!
about. Are you okay?
Summoned a second one. Now there's
Oh,
two
I,
of them.
I keep forgetting you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh. Yeah. So, I was talking to John Mason earlier today, about a new comic that came out today. I want to hear your opinion on this thing that happened with Owlman. You're familiar with Owlman, right?
Yeah, he's made out of owls.
No, no. I know you're Josh and me, because I feel like you do know who Owl is.
Josh.
So Owlman is the Earth 3 counterpart to Batman. He's like the evil Batman of the multiverse.
Or is Batman just the good version of Owlman?
Well, when you look at the 52 universes of the multiverse or whatever,
Yeah.
um, he's the only like evil Batman. So doesn't that make him the evil one? You could be like,
Uh,
all the other ones are just the good Owl Man. Like, I guess you could try and say that. But, they're all Batmen except for him. Well, are they all Batmen? I might be wrong. I think some of the Batmen in other universes aren't called Batman. They're like called something else. Still, Owlman, he self-identifies as like I'm the evil Batman of the multiverse. He even says that he's jealous of the Batman who laughs because he's like, that's my thing. He's like, I'm the evil Batman. Like this is bullshit. Like why is it that he's the one who's like causing all the trouble? What do you think of that like concept of like Owlman being jealous of the other like evil Batman?
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's like an interesting concept for sure. Um, Now, one thing that's interesting, Owlman learns that every time like time's rewritten or like the multiverse is destroyed or comes back, Owlman dies. Like John Stewart Green Lantern like tells Owlman about like the history of everything, about like all the different like crisis events. And Owlman interprets it not as like he always dies when like the multiverse comes back, but more that he's essentially immortal as long as like the multiverse comes back. He's like, so you mean to tell me every time essentially the apocalypse has happened and everything's ended that I've been like killed? But every time I pop back up, he's like, that means as long as I help the heroes save the multiverse, I'll come back even if I die. Like he's like, I'm essentially immortal. And it changes him to become like essentially an anti hero because he starts like killing bad guys to help the heroes save the multiverse. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I don't know. Like, have you tried?
Ryan, did you hear what I said?
Yeah, like Green Lantern's there telling him stuff, and then there's like heroes in the multiverse.
Ryan's into his Yu-Gi-Oh game. He's not paying attention. So to go back over what I said,
Mhm.
essentially Owlman learns that every time the multiverse
Yeah, yeah,
comes back.
he's immortal.
Right, okay.
I was listening to what you're saying, Jet.
Then what's like your like
Why ask me
opinion on
questions?
it? Because I'm asking
What do you
you,
want me to say?
what are your thoughts on it? Like on the
No
his
comment.
perspective of the situation.
I mean, it's true. He can't be killed, unless he dies. Because then people die when they are killed.
The references. So I think it's very like optimistic of like the evil Batman for him to see it as not that he's destined to die, but instead that he's like destined to live. I do think that's like
Destined to be big dick.
there are a lot of cool things that happen in this comic. For
Like
one,
what?
we get to see the Rainbow Batman Corps, which is essentially evil Batman from the Dark Multiverse. Excuse me, who each have a different like Lantern Corps ring, and they're all like one big team, and they're all different colors. What are your thoughts on like the Rainbow Batman Corps, like conceptually?
So they're all Batman?
They're all Batman. They're all like dark multiverse evil
How much
Batman.
Batman do you need?
How can Batman be we? Is that what you
No,
said?
I said, how many Batman do you need?
Um, because this is like a comic book where everything's turned up to 11, it's hard to tell how many members there are of the Rainbow Batman Corps. Because when they first show up, it's almost like one of those, it's like the whole team's running up on us kind of thing. But it looks like they're coming through like a portal or something. So you can't necessarily tell how many people came through the portal. You know what I mean? So there's a
Maybe.
good few of them. I just don't know like if we know the exact number of members of the Rainbow Batman Corps. But do you think that's like an interesting concept?
Sure.
Yeah. Like the concept of multiversal Green Lanterns, I think is cool. Like even if it wasn't like, well, not even multiversal Green Lanterns, multiversal lanterns period. Like even if it was just like it's a bunch of different lanterns from different universes like teaming up to form a team. Like that would be cool. But then saying not only is it that, but it's like different lantern Batmen from different universes that form a team. I'm like that's even better. The only thing that makes it shitty in my opinion is that they're all like dark multiverse Batmen, so they don't matter. So it's just lame. Uh
Rude. Telling them they don't matter.
That's what they get for being in the dark multiverse. I mean, technically, dark multiverse worlds don't have to sink and fade away. They can potentially rise into the normal multiverse, which is
Yeah,
how we get
Dark Knight
Earth
Rises.
53. But I feel like I don't think we've seen any dark multiverse worlds rise since Earth 53. Like that's like the only one we've seen like come up and like join the multiverse. And then I never hear people talk about Earth 53. I feel like it was something that was introduced and then kind of forgotten about. Like a lot of
I
things
mean, it
in DC.
probably was.
So like maybe we'll see something like the Rainbow Batman Corps again, and maybe they'll rise to the top. Oh, that would be an interesting concept. Do you think Dark
Yeah,
Knight's
bop,
death
bop, bop, bop to the top.
gotta leave the dark multiverse? So do you think that Dark Knight's death metal, the current like DC event, could end with all the dark multiverse worlds like rising to the top? Like, what if they got rid of the dark multiverse and in the process made
Yo,
all.
and now there's another infinite multiverse. All those multiverse worlds are and there's just more.
I mean, once since they already have an infinite multiverse, I'm fine with them adding to it. It would make the dark multiverse stories like actually matter, you know?
It's got dimensional fissure. That's a problem.
Ryan's still out here playing Yu-Gi-Oh while we're doing the
Yugi O's.
Yu-Gi-Oh!
Oh, it's good. He didn't grab dimensional fissure.
While we're doing the podcast. Let's see. So, Guy Gardner, I sent you a screenshot of this earlier today.
He's like punching a dude in
Yeah,
the
he's
face.
punching Nazi. It may not be Nazi Superman. It might be the Soviet Superman. It's one of the two. But he punches him in the face, and Guy Gardner says, "I've been practicing like my one-hit knockout, and I've like edited my Green Lantern construct to be of like the same radiation as the kryptonite of your universe." And I'm like, that seems pretty overpowered. Like, against Kryptonians, at least. Because they're essentially establishing that Guy Gardner could pretty much go up to any, like, Superman character and be like, I just got the one hit knockout punch ready. Like, I've practiced this and tested it, and I know it works. Bam, bam, bam. Like, he might be able to take on, like, the Superman family if they were, like, possessed or something. Like you could probably call Guy Gardner and he's like, "Yeah, if I can just get one good hit on each of them, I can like guaranteed knock them out." What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, can any Green Lantern do this? Or is it just Guy Gardner?
So, potentially, I would say any Green Lantern could do it because Guy Gardner isn't like using some special power that he possesses that no other Green Lantern has. But it's more the fact that Guy Gardner's like, this is something I've been practicing for one, and two, that Guy Gardner is like, and I've done it. Like I've done it to just like an alternate universe Superman before, so I know it works. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, sure, Hal Jordan probably could do it too, but Hal Jordan doesn't have like the practice doing it, and he also has like he doesn't have the feet. So you could say like, sure, all of them should be capable, but Guy Gardner is the one who's like proven himself. Um, do you feel like this raises Guy Gardner's place at all on your like personal tier list of like powerful DC heroes?
I don't think he was on a tier list, and I don't think I have one.
Do you feel like if you did have one, that Guy Gardner would have been on it before this feat?
Maybe.
Maybe. Um, who would you say are like your top 10 DC characters who you think are like the most powerful?
Yeah, top of the list is Golden Lantern.
We know barely anything about Goal.
Yeah, but he's gold. You know what that means?
No, no one does yet. Um,
Yeah, okay. So we have Golden Lantern, Cheetah, because she can time travel.
oh goodness. Cheetah can time travel, it seems like. Even if she never
Um,
does it.
Barry Allen, then Wally West. um,
Why Barry before Wally? I know the whole tier list is a joke, like what you're doing, but I was surprised. Keep going. So you got Cheetah. Cheetah
that's
went
it. That's
first.
the tier list.
So you said Gold Lantern,
Cheetah,
Cheetah,
Barry
Barry
Allen.
Allen, and Wally West. So that's like
That's
your
all I have
top
so far.
four.
Yeah, so far.
Okay. So Gold Lantern, we know so little about him, but I can already say that like the little we do know about him is that he can do transmutation with his ring, and that he can fly really fast. He flew past like Superboy and another member of the Legion of Superheroes, and I think they were taken aback by like how fast he was. They were like, "Whoa, like where'd he come from?" kind of thing.
Do you think he's fast enough to time travel?
I mean, he's not on the like top 10 speedster list that Joshua Williamson made. Or is it Williamson or Joshua Williams? I
Oh,
apologize for butchering his name. It's one of the two. But he's not on that tier list, which that tier list, as soon as they introduce new characters, becomes outdated.
I mean, the tier list was already outmoded because they didn't have all the other people on there.
Well, it was a top 10. So, I mean, Joshua Williamson could argue the other people aren't on there because they're not in the top 10 or whatever. Um, but I am curious to see, I guess, if they ever update that tier list, if the people I don't like being on that list will be taken off of it. Um, which is most of that list. I feel like most of the people on that list shouldn't be there, especially not in the places that they're given. Um, in case no one knows what we're talking about with like the speed tier list, I can like pull that up. It's called The Great Race, and the guy's name is Joshua Williamson, not Williams. My bad. But the tier list is Wally West Flash, Barry Allen Flash. Crap! I need the version that has the names at the bottom, because I tried to just go by like order of people running, but some people are kind of overlapping, and I can't tell just by looking at it. Oh no! I'm trying to pull up images on Google Images, but the
Mm-hmm.
ones that have the text at the bottom have been too small,
Mm-hmm.
so I just can't fucking read it. I'll keep clicking. I'll find it. Boop 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 boop. Do 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 do. Bow bow. Ba 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 boop boop. Do 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 do. That's that High School Musical song that Ryan was doing earlier. I don't know the name of it though.
Bob to the top.
Bop to the top. Thank you, guys. Always ready with the High School Musical trivia. It's like 24 frames of Nick. Let's see. Okay, so here we go. So the tier list is Wally West, Barry Allen, Reverse Flash, Superman, The Black Racer, Cheetah, Wonder Woman, Godspeed, Shazam, and Kid Flash, which is terrible. I feel like Kid Flash should not be in last place behind like Shazam. Godspeed probably shouldn't be like under Wonder Woman. Like any of the speedsters, I think if they're anywhere near Flash's level, they should just be like higher up on the list. And really, the whole list should probably be speedsters because we have more than enough speedsters to fill up the list. Um,
Yeah, you need Jay with his shivering.
oh yeah. So the shivering that Ryan's referring to, Jay Garrick, the original Flash, he gets his speed from hard water, which hard water is like a real thing, but the way that they're using it, they're just referring to like ice. So he's really cold.
I mean that it's true. It is hard water, very solid. Solid state of mind.
Um, so he's just like shivering, which gives him like his super speed. Later on, I think they made it where Jay Garrick is connected to the Speed Force. It's not that he's just shivering all the time. But Scott Snyder,
Or is it? Dun, 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 dun.
fair. So Scott Snyder recently revealed that in Dark Knight's death metal, all the characters are going to remember their like entire publication history. So Batman's gonna remember stuff that happened in like 1939 because he's just existed like from now like all the way back then kind of thing. So Jay Garrick, even if he does have like an origin where it's like, oh well, he actually connected to the Speed Force, he'll still remember getting the powers from like hard water or
Remember, remember.
so it makes a lot of stuff pretty complicated, I would say. Like in trying to understand characters' histories. Because now I don't even think they'll understand their own histories. Now one thing that's pretty wild that happened in the comic that I was talking about earlier, the one with Owlman and the one with Guy Gardner punching out that Superman guy. There's another screenshot that I sent Ryan earlier today, and it was of Captain Carrot holding like the dead bodies of the zoo crew. So Captain Carrot is a DC superhero who's in the
Oh, is it the rabbit guy?
yeah the rabbit guy. He's in the 52 universes of the DC multiverse or whatever. And Captain Carrot is essentially like that universe's version of Superman. There, everybody is like a cartoon animal, and their world actually respects like cartoon physics. So if you jump, not if you jump, if you drop like a piano on somebody's head, it may like squash them flat, but then they'll like accordion back up. Or like if you draw like a tunnel on like a cave wall, well, not on a cave wall, on like a mountainside, your painted tunnel would become like a real tunnel. Like all the Looney Tunes bullshit is just a thing that exists there. And Captain Carrot cries in this issue because he talks about how, with his world being so like cartoony and silly, he never thought that like the zoo crew would ever die. Like he didn't think there would ever be a thing that could just like wipe them out and just kill all of them. But when Perpetua sent her army of, um, I'm trying to remember what they're called, apex predators, which are like white Martians. Well, it's weird to call them white Martians. It's like Martians mixed with humans, and they all are white, but they're not the same as white Martians. White Martians are a whole other thing. The apex predators are so strong that I guess they can like ignore cartoon physics, which is really impressive to be honest. Ryan, do you know of any characters who are so powerful that they can disregard cartoon physics?
Maybe VW. No, no. XYZ Dragon Cannon was able to like kill Toon World.
Okay, that's an interesting Yu-Gi-Oh reference you got there. I accept it. Um, Now Toon Force and like gag character powers are really interesting because a lot of times they're considered to be like some of the strongest forms of reality manipulation. I think it's crazy for beings to be
Like Larry.
eh, yeah, kinda.
Wait, that means Larry's canon.
Larry is canon. Yeah.
Yo, Larry's
In case you
canon.
guys don't know who Larry is a fifth dimensional imp who appeared in the Teen Titans animated series that came out when we were kids. And he essentially has like the abilities of Mr. Mixelplix or Batmite, if you're more familiar with Batmite. But instead of following Superman like Mr. Mixelplix does, or following Batman like Batmite does, Larry follows Robin in the Teen Titans show. But yeah, if like every DC media is canon and exists on a universe somewhere in the infinite DC multiverse, Teen Titans
Somewhere
is canon.
over the Larry.
Over the Larry. My goodness. Um, have you ever seen two fifth dimensional imps fight?
No,
It's pretty intense, not gonna lie. So,
I don't believe you. I think you're lying.
you think I'm lying? Well, you should check out some of the fights. Recently in a Justice League book, Mr. Mixelplix and Batmite fought.
Where's Larry?
Did you say where?
Yeah, where's Larry?
So, wait, did you say where's Larry?
Yeah, where's Larry?
Um, since Larry's canon, he technically could have shown up, I guess. Well, at the time, the fifth dimension was getting all fucked up. It was due to the just
Oh man, Larry's dead.
Larry probably isn't dead. I don't think he's dead. Um, the fifth dimension is kind of fucked. Let's talk about that a little bit. So
Boom, 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 boom,
the
boom.
fifth dimension exists outside of the multiverse, in case anybody's curious. So there's like a DC map of the multiverse, and that entire map is fourth dimensional. So there's nothing on that map that's like a fifth dimensional thing or higher. Well, all the like fifth dimensional imps come from the land of imagination, which is the fifth dimension. So whenever you see Mr. Mixelplix appear in anything on any universe or in like any DC piece of media, it's always the same Mr. Mixelplix. There aren't multiples of him. So if you watch like a like DC animated short where Mr. Mixelplix is like, "Oh, I'm meeting like Superman for the first time. We've never had an interaction or whatever." Mr. Mixelplix may be meeting like that Superman for the first time, but he's like interacted with like all these different Supermen from across the multiverse, which means Larry, the fifth dimensional imp from that like Teen Titans cartoon, there's only one Larry. And there, like, if Larry ever appears in anything,
Larry, the one, the legend.
the great, uh, it'll always be that same Larry. But that introduces like some weird complications, I would say, because genies were established to be fifth dimensional imps before the New 52. And we have had like a bunch of genie stuff happen recently in Teen where one of the members was a genie. And they have a whole arc where they like go to hell and then they like rescue the genies from slavery and they free all the genies to where they no longer need masters.
Free all genies.
Free all genies. Which I actually am not a fan of them doing that because I get the idea of wanting to liberate a people and make sure that like they're not forced into servitude. But Mr. Mixelplix is like a huge nuisance sometimes and he can really like fuck stuff up. Like he's extremely dangerous. And he's like one fifth dimensional being who can like manipulate reality. Batmite also can like kind of like fuck stuff up. He can go like a little too far and trying to help Batman and sometimes make things worse. A matter of fact, Batmite accidentally gave the Joker his powers in a Batman the Brave and the Bold episode, and the Joker then used those powers to kill Batman like over and over and over again. Again, this is just like one fifth dimensional being like messing up and it causing a problem. Now, imagine like a whole bunch of them all at once are made where you guys don't need a master anymore. You guys can just manipulate reality freely with no restriction, and you're all free right now. And the only history that you guys know of is being like servants to mankind. I just feel like DC could really take advantage of this and have like a whole bunch of new genie like villains and heroes like pop out of this. Like genies start like picking sides and stuff and using their reality manipulation powers to kind of do whatever they want. What are your thoughts on this, Ryan?
I mean, if genies want to go hard, let them.
And you can call the event Genies go hard, but you got to credit Ryan on coining the name. Um, but I do think it's interesting this like genie concept of them being like fifth dimensional beings because in the Teen Titans arc that I was talking about, it makes it seem like the genies aren't fifth dimensional beings. They're now like made by God or whatever.
Jesus.
Excuse me. Yeah. So you end up in this weird situation where it's like, so what are genies really? Like, are they fifth dimensional beings? Are they made by God? Are they both? Does that mean that like all these new genie characters who have been introduced thanks to Teen Titans, are there only like one version of all of them everywhere? Because like that becomes complicated. Because that means if you ever see one of those genies appear in like a cartoon or another comic or something, it's the same genie and they're carrying all their lore with them essentially. In Injustice, Jakim's genie, Jakeem Thunder being a member of the Justice Society of America who has a genie and a pin that essentially can grant him like any wish as long as he doesn't like kill anybody or bring anybody back to life. Jakim's genie appeared in an Injustice comic, but since he's fifth dimensional, isn't that like the same genie? Like, does that mean that the genie from Injustice is also the genie that Jakeem has in like main continuity? Like to me, stuff like that gets really fuzzy, you know? What are your thoughts, Ryan? Do you think it's kind of like crazy to have to keep up with all of that?
Sure, yeah.
Also, Ryan, do you happen to have like any like things that you would like to talk about? I noticed that I feel like I've been like hogging the podcast, and we only have like a few more minutes until like 11.
I mean, you can do what you want.
Okay, let's see. So I guess I'm really interested in seeing what they're gonna do with like the fifth dimension stuff, if they do anything with it, and what they're gonna do with the genie stuff, if they do anything with it. I really like the idea that they've set up where Damian Wayne, Bruce Wayne's son and the current Robin, was in a love triangle with a genie. Because right now they're kids, but if they let the characters grow up and Damian eventually becomes Batman 666, then I would love to see them like expand upon his relationship with the genie once he's an adult. Because Batman 666 is like Damian Wayne makes a deal with the devil and he gains like supernatural abilities and he booby traps Gotham. Where if you try to like commit a crime anywhere in Gotham, the city essentially can defend itself with all these crazy like traps and contraptions and stuff. Um, but we've only seen like glimpses of Batman 666 and we really don't know like what Damien's personal life is like in this world. Like is he like Batman full time now? Does he do like Ghost Rider stuff? Does he ever work with the genie? The genie that he was in a love triangle with, her brother described himself as being the actual devil, like I'm the devil kind of thing. So if Damien made a deal with the devil, does that mean that he made a deal with the brother of his love interest? Like you could really play with this concept and make it like a crazy story. What are your thoughts on this, Ryan?
I mean, I feel like a lot of people claim to be the devil.
That's fair. Like I just think you're right. In the Marvel universe, there's like a big thing about that, where it's like sometimes it's not the devil, it's like Mephisto. Like there are like multiple characters who will make that claim, but then not actually be the devil. Um, Now in DC, I think the big
In Image, there's a devil. Dragon ran into him
hmm
when he was in hell.
makes sense. I mean, a lot of things have a fictional devil. I think
No, it's the real devil.
the real devil and all of them.
Yeah, it's in hell. It's the real one. It's right there.
For the DC multiverse, oh shit, that actually is really complicated DC's like crossover shenanigans where they've crossed over with like Marvel and stuff like that make the God Sphere not make as much sense.
Well, it never made sense, Jay. If you really think about it.
Excuse me, I guess. Like the concept of the God Sphere is that in the DC multiverse, whenever you see a god, it's the same god. So if Zeus appears and like Batman the
Yeah, yeah, but
Bull,
you got to think bigger. Megaverse, Jay. Megaverse.
right?
Megaverse.
So it's established that like I think this is like a Marvel concept specifically, but Marvel says that like all of the multiverses of the other comic book titles exist. Is it that they exist in the Megaverse or that they exist in the Omniverse?
I think it's Megaverse.
Because I thought the Megaverse was when they're talking about like the brothers or whatever.
I think that's the same thing.
Okay, fair. The brothers, by the way, there used to be this idea that like the DC multiverse and the Marvel multiverse were both like humanoid beings and they were brothers and they fused for a little bit in the 90s and we got to see like combinations of characters or whatever. Based on that concept, all of the like different comic book titles have their own like being essentially that exist in the Megaverse. Um, which that's a lot cleaner than the Jim Lee everything's canon thing. Because the Jim Lee everything's canon thing says, well, no, like every DC Marvel crossover did happen, and it is like on a universe somewhere in the multiverse, which means it would still follow like multiverse rules. But Marvel has their own like pantheons of gods and stuff like that wouldn't necessarily exist in the God sphere. You know what I mean? Like when Marvel Satan shows up, that shouldn't be DC Satan. Or I guess it could be. I don't know. I don't know.
What if it's this God?
What's the what? I missed the last thing you said.
I said, what if it's the same God sphere? Like, what if a guy who's like the devil in Marvel is also the devil in DC? Like, if the universes do a crossover, do the gods do crossovers?
That'd be interesting. To be honest, a lot of the God sphere stuff I think doesn't get touched on as much as it could. And I wouldn't mind if we had like a New Gods book that was like an ongoing thing. It doesn't have to be the New Gods. Really, I probably wouldn't want it to be the New Gods. I'd probably want it to be like a team of heroes who went through the God Sphere. That actually would be dope as fuck. Do that actually. Give me like a group of superheroes and they defend the God Sphere. So they're not in the multiverse at all. They're doing stuff where they're like traveling through like heaven and hell and nightmare and dream and New Genesis and Apocalypse and stuff like that. And that's like their territory. I think that would be really cool. Um, there's a team I think that's called Justice Incarnate or something like that. I might be butchering that name or just misremembering it, but it's the like multiverse Justice League team, and they patrol like the 52 universes and try and make sure that like all their shit is. But they don't have a book, but I feel like they should. I feel like it would be really cool, especially if they stopped doing the 52 multiverse bullshit and they just said like infinite multiverse, and we had a Justice League Incarnate book where they like travel across the whole multiverse. I feel like that could lead to like a lot of like cool adventures. What are your thoughts on that, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, lots of cool stuff in the places beyond the outer rim.
Speaking of like a superhero team that does multiverse stuff, have you heard of the Exiles? Okay. The Exiles are a Marvel superhero team that essentially do multiverse stuff. They travel across the Marvel Infinite Multiverse. Um, And a lot of the times, the members of the Exiles, well, I can't say a lot of the times. I've only read a few Exiles comics. But the ones that I read had a team of Exiles that came from different universes from the get go. So, like, each member of the team is already from a different world, which is similar to Justice League Incarnate, but Exiles has an actual book, though, where Justice League Incarnate does not.
Book though.
I mean, technically, Multiversity, you could say, is like a Justice League Incarnate book. And I think Multiversity is
Could you?
actually the book where that starts. Like, it's like their origin story. Ryan, would you read Multiversity?
I mean, I guess I could
Um,
if I
it's,
wanted to.
it's written by Grant Morrison. It establishes like the 52 universe multiverse stuff. It has one of the best single issue comics I've ever read. It's Ultra Comics #1 is a part of like Multiversity. And I wrote like a whole paper in college about Ultra Comics #1. It's really good. I'd highly recommend it. Like even if you didn't read Multiversity, I would say you should read Ultra Comics #1. It's worth your time. And if you like it and you're like, oh man, more stuff, I want more stuff, then you can just read the rest of Multiversity if you want. Because Ultra Comics #1, the book itself, like the comic, is a major character in Multiversity. Because that's how crazy Grant Morrison's mind works. Does that pique your interest at all?
A little.
A little? Okay. I'll let you see
All out.
that idea. How's your duel going so far?
I'm 3-1.
So 3 victories and 1 loss?
That one loss, I didn't draw like any monsters. Uh,
Are you fighting like the
so
same guy?
yeah.
Okay. Also, did you
He's using
birthday?
a what's it called? It's got a name. What's the name of the deck?
While you're thinking about the name of the deck, did you wish Zach a happy birthday?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just double
It's
checking.
chain something.
So you're trying to remember the name of a deck or a card?
It's like a strategy, but yeah, it's like a deck. It uses a bunch of like essentially things like Wind Up Rabbit and the Evil Swarm guy to like dodge off the field, like to survive. It's like an old control deck that's slightly been upgraded, I guess, because he is part of the Australians.
Did you say to dodge the field?
Yeah, so like something like Wind Up Rabbit, where like if you played like Torrential Tribute, you could just like and then banish him. So it has a
Then
bunch
you
of
use
like
it like a
chain.
Raigeki.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Board clearing without having to get rid of your own shit. Not bad. Um, I probably need to take a look at some of the Rush Duel cards that are out.
You know, you
Um, to see if I'm gonna make like another Rush Duel deck anytime soon. Um, Blaine was asking me about like a collab, the idea of like collabing with him on a video. Um, you and I are collabing right now. I mean, I guess it's not collabing if you don't make your own content. When are you gonna start making like Yu-Gi-Oh videos or like videos where you talk about topics or anything like that? Because I feel like you're an interesting person and that you could do that if you wanted to. It just really depends on if you have like the desire.
Mom's an interesting person who I've never met, so I wouldn't be able to answer that if she was an interesting person because I don't know.
Understandable. If you asked me if my mom was an interesting person, I would say yes. Yes, she is. Um, right now, I still have the like super speed tier list for the DC universe up on my screen, but there's an ad for like a comic, but the artwork in the ad is really weird. Like the background is kind of like a sketched out kind of futuristic city that for some reason is giving me like anime vibes, but I don't know why. The character who's standing like in the center of the comic book cover in the ad looks like Huey from the Boondocks. It looks like someone drew Huey, but they tried to make him look like more anime, and he has like a fireball in his hand. And it reminds me of a Mastermind Comics video that I watched, where the owner of Mastermind Comics was interviewing a black creator who like works on comic books, and that creator was critiquing the fact that a lot of like black artists will just more or less draw like Boondocks characters or like popular characters but as black people. So he'll be like, I've seen like a million like black Gokus or like people who go, "Oh, I have my own original idea." But all their idea is like it's Naruto but he's black. Like that's like their whole pitch and that's just kind of how they do it. Um and he talked about how he's kind of like tired of seeing stuff like that and how he gets really excited when he sees something that he considers like truly original. And I feel like the thing that I'm looking at, like the ad, is the kind of thing that he would like criticize. Where he'd be like, well, it's just like Huey from the Boondocks, but what he's got like fire hands or something. Like I feel like he would say something along those lines. Um, that being said, the guy who owns Mastermind Comics has this philosophy where he's like, it's not about being original in what you do, but it's about making sure that your story has like the five components needed to make it like a good story. And he has like a video where he talks about what the five components are, which is very, excuse me, subjective. Like it's like his opinion on what the five components should be. But he talks about how plenty of good ideas come out of stuff like, well, what if I take like a pre existing thing, but I put like a spin on it or whatever? And the idea is that like you can totally do that and make it a thing. And as long as you change enough elements to where it's like distinct and it's not like exactly the same, that's just kind of how new things are made. Um, how do you feel about that argument? Like, do you agree with the idea that you shouldn't focus on trying to make your work unique and instead should just focus on making your work just whatever your
I
vision?
mean, there's a thing that Eric Larson was talking about with like kind of like people copying, kind of like copycatting other people's kind of like art style in the beginning. I've seen it. It's kind of like people I think were saying that like the guy who does who is it? Is it like the fairy tale guy? I think they're saying that it was like kind of more or less similar to another, but like they kind of like evolve and like are different later. You know, like if you start out copying one guy's kind of art style, you can develop your own. You know, but like you'll still get like your work out there or whatever, so it's fine, I guess. Yeah.
Right. I've heard similar things be said before. I also think it's a good way to get your name out there. Like, if you don't have your own style yet and you're mainly just kind of mimicking, let's say, like Jim Lee, that's still pretty good. Like, if you can draw and you're like, I don't have a style, but if you wanted me to do like Jim Lee Batman, I could draw Jim Lee Batman. I think that's enough to get you like hired somewhere. Because all you need is for someone to be like, you can draw like professional guy. I don't have professional guy, but I can
In
hire
terms of like
you.
IPs, like Japan has a whole bunch of dojins where people are like, using other people's characters to start out with, just like sell their smaller like dojins, and then they can break into being professional from that.
How do you feel about like dojins? Do you think stuff like that should be more accessible for like American audiences to be able to produce? I guess not audiences, but American like creators Like, do you think we should be able to make essentially commercialized fan fiction in the same way that in Japan they're able to make doujins, which are more or less commercialized fan fiction?
Probably.
Interesting. Um, how do you feel about like the public domain and the idea that essentially we can do doujin style stuff, but once it essentially isn't owned by anyone. So it's like you have a whole library of characters that you can kind of write your own stories about or interpret in your own way and kind of do like the fan fiction thing with, but it's just official because of the fact that like everybody owns it, so anyone can write a story about it.
Hmm.
Like, what's your opinion on that compared to the Dojin thing?
I think we should reverse the copyright law back to what it was earlier.
So, essentially, changing the copyright limits so that a lot of stuff that should have already been public domain just would immediately become public domain. Is that what you're saying?
Hmm.
Did you say mm-hmm?
Hmm.
Okay. It's quieter like over the thing, so I like barely caught the mm-hmm. You didn't go like mm-hmm. I feel like I would have caught that. But yeah, I mean, I think that would be interesting. I also think that would probably piss a lot of people off. I don't think, like, I'm sure there are people who are like, I'm glad that my thing isn't expired yet. I still have like a few more years. Where if you, excuse me, did that, it would just fuck a lot of people over, to like suddenly revert it backwards. But at the same time, it also would give a lot of people like freedom because it doesn't remove your ability to use like a work or a character or anything like that. It just expands that ability to other people. And thanks to trademarks, public domain, I can't say that public domain doesn't mean anything anymore due to trademarks because I think we still need more legal precedent. Because there is like a court statement that makes me believe that trademark shouldn't be able to trump public domain, but it wasn't a specific enough case. It was like a very like niche circumstance that went to court and got a ruling. It had to do with a it's a book that was like still owned by someone, like the rights to the book. But a show based off of the book had lapsed into public domain, and then someone made a movie that just used clips from the show. Like they cut up the show and made it into a movie. And essentially, the people who own the rights to the book were like, we're gonna like sue you because you're essentially ripping off the book. And the court ruled, I think, in favor of the owners of the book, but for like weird reasons. Like it was a thing where the people who did the movie were fine with how they did the movie because they were using public domain footage. Like I think they were innocent in that regard. It was like some other shit where it was like, but you did fuck up here. You did something wrong at like another point and they got in trouble. But people have brought that court case up as like, well, it seems like maybe public domain does trump trademark, but we really don't know. It sounds like that's where they would lean based on that previous case, but we're not sure if they would lean that way or not. Um, what are your thoughts on that, Ryan? Like, do you think if a case came up, like a newer, more specific case, that they would lean in favor of trademark doesn't trump public domain?
I
Do you-
mean, hope like it sounds like a good thing, right?
right. Like, I personally believe that trademark shouldn't trump public domain. because if it does, it'll essentially not entirely get rid of public domain, but it'll make it where any person can just circumvent public domain for their property. Like anyone who doesn't, their stuff would still be freely usable. But then everyone who does circumvent it, essentially, you'll have people who think they're doing something that they're allowed to do because something's public domain, and then they get in trouble because they violate like multiple trademarks in the process, kind of thing. But what's your perspective? I'd love to hear more of like your thoughts on it and why you feel like they should go a certain way about it legally. They being like a court decision on the matter. Ryan,
What?
Ryan Leroy, are you
What?
there?
What?
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 Did you hear the question?
Yeah, you're like, what are my thoughts?
Right.
I mean, I hope they'll do something to roll back the copyright.
Well, that's like a different thing. I wasn't asking about the role
Ah, you're like the public domain over the
trademark.
trademark.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I was
It was,
asking like why do you
mm,
feel the way you do about it?
I don't know.
Because I think you're justified in like your desire for them to do it a certain way. Oh, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
That's justified.
Something about that felt kind of anime. You were like, justified.
No, if it was anime, I'd be doing some weird laugh like in One Piece.
Oh, sorry. Justified. Foo 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 foo.
No, Fufu is pretty normal in terms of laughs.
So I get you. One Piece weird.
Like
Justified
put like an X on it.
and X.
Yeah, like
Here's
she's name.
she.
Like the
Okay.
guy from China, like the
Okay.
head tiny,
I,
like that.
I got you. Justified. She.
Yeah, but
I
now you have to
need no
differentiate
justification.
that from the SHI from she.
So how would I pronounce it to make sure that it doesn't sound like
I
S?
don't know.
Would it be like G instead of she? So you kind of make like a G sound, like G.
Maybe.
Yeah. Justified. G. I need no justification. Um, Earlier, Godzilla asked me to do like a high pitched voice for like the rest of a stream or whatever, and it was interesting. I really caught John Mason off guard because he didn't expect me to actually do it, and I didn't do it for the rest of the stream, but I did do it for a little bit. I'm interested in experimenting with voices a little bit, especially since I did like a voiceover thing today for like the SpongeBob looking for WAP video or whatever. Um,
WAP.
did you say WAP?
WAP.
WAP? Do you
Is it
say
WAP or
WAP or
WAP?
WAP?
WAP.
Okay.
Wait.
Because I feel like you would pronounce it like map. Like you'd be like WAP.
As
But
opposed
I
to
think
mop.
the official terminology, not the official terminology, like the official pronunciation of this slang acronym is WAP. But I don't know why you're pronouncing the A like a O. Like, why would it be WAP instead of WAP?
I don't know.
Because the sound of like A and ass is ah, and you're using the like the A and ass in wet ass pussy. So you think it would be like wa for wet, ah for ass, and puh for
I feel like a lot of acronyms don't like feature the pronunciation of like the words that are in them like that.
what's like a good example of like an acronym that violates that? Oh, well actually that is really easy. That's really easy to figure out cuz like intelligence or whatever, it's like eh. So the CIA isn't like KIA. Well, normally you don't pronounce acronyms. Normally you just say the fucking letters. Like, it's the fact that for WAP,
I mean,
you do
don't you
pronounce it
spell
out.
that? I'm
I
trying to
mean,
think of one where you would
you pronounce like
just pronounce.
NASA. Like people say NASA.
Yeah.
But most of the time you don't do that. Most of the time it's like FBI, CIA, NCIS.
If you did pronounce it like that, wouldn't it be like NASA? Because like aeronautic is like an A sound,
So it's
not like
A.
NASA.
And then is it association that's at the end of NASA?
I think it's administration.
Administration. So ah. So NASA, like you said. That's
NASA.
that's interesting.
I
I
mean,
mean, I don't know. I imagine that's not the case because I never hear people say it like that.
NASA.
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 NASCAR. Oh, NASCAR is another one where people say it. They don't say like NASCAR. Wait, is NASCAR an acronym? Like, does that mean anything?
Uh,
Walls in this house. I actually
it
watched
is an
a
acronym.
video
It's
today.
for the National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing.
Interesting.
I've never heard anyone actually
Like, say it before.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Same here. News to me. So
Learn something every day.
I gotta go. I gotta go for now. Uh,
Do it. Do it.
Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate it. If you guys like this video, make sure to smash that like button, favorite, comment, subscribe, and ding 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 ring the notification bell to be notified whenever we do these videos. This is your host, your friend, your boy, Jet Black, the one and only, here with
Your mom.
logging out. Peace. Chick the guy. Thank you for joining me, Ryan.